David, it's good to see you again.
Hi, Tony. Nice to see you too.
Wow. And the last time we talked was Bass Reeves. What a great series that was. And man, you are just one of my favorite actors.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much.
Talk to me about Newborn. This is a slightly different character than I think I've seen you play.
For sure, which is why I really wanted to play it. It was a real challenge. Incarceration, let alone solitary confinement, is very much outside of my experience. I feel blessed to be able to say that. But where I really was able to relate to the character was the fact that he is a husband, he's a father, he's a brother. I am all of those things, and I know how deeply I value those relationships in my life. And with Chris Newborn coming out of 7 years of solitary confinement, all he wants is to reconnect with those relationships. And as I say, I can relate to that. But where a lot of my research, a lot of my having to go under the hood was really what are the effects of solitary confinement and how can I portray that in a truthful way in this film?
And how did you conduct that research? Did you talk to people that were in solitary confinement for a long time? I mean, that's got to be just a heartbreaking type of investigation.
Yeah, absolutely right. And that is what I did. I did a lot of reading. There are some great books out there written by people who have had to endure solitary confinement. One called Solitary by a gentleman called Albert Woodfox, who had
Mm.
endured over 40 years of solitary confinement, if you can believe that. A book by Shaka Senghor called Righting My Wrongs, and I interviewed Shaka Senghor as well. He had also, on and off, dealt with 7 years of solitary confinement, but my primary source was Richard Rosario, who had done 20 years of imprisonment for a crime he didn't commit, and seven of those were solitary confinement. And so, interviewing him, interviewing Shaka Senghor, but primarily Richard Rosario is where I was able to land on the specificity of what that circumstance leads to psychologically and literally for a person.
Here's what I took away when watching your performances is that your your character is not in what he's vocalizing, it's in his eyes. I mean, it's
Mm.
in the silences where you really feel that kind of hollowness that
Mm.
he must feel.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that because you can only imagine what that level of isolation, the effect of it. You're not going to have conversations with people while you're in there. So what does that mean when you're now back in society? And so much of what I read and in the conversations I had with people who have endured this is the self-talk, is the inner voice, is the inner monologue that has taken many years to develop, and so that doesn't just switch off because you're now back in humanity. And so no matter the interaction, there is an inner monologue going on, which I think is probably what you're picking up on in what I was trying to convey with the character.
Talk to me about this brilliant cast you've got surrounding you.
Yeah, I mean, Olivia Washington, who plays my wife in it, Tara, just a brilliant, brilliant talent. Very easy to play the desire to be back to her in terms of our relationship that has been decimated by the incarceration. Aidan Stocks, who's just so special in the film, who plays our son who's become nonverbal because of the trauma of what my character has had to deal
Mm.
with. And you want to talk about acting through your eyes. My gosh,
Yeah,
that
what an amazing performance.
really, really special. Barry Pepper, who's a favorite of mine and who was in Bass Reeves with me. I asked him to come play on this, and thankfully he graced us with his enormous talents on the film. And then Jimmy Fails, who plays my brother in the film as well. Just really, really great, great actors.
What do you think audiences will take away from the experience of watching Newborn?
I really hope that they are able to relate to the character's desire to heal from a period of deep isolation. I think if we're going to be honest, we've all dealt with feelings of isolation, whether it's literal isolation or, of the mind, of the heart. So to have a film that illustrates that in a very literal way, but also in a psychological way. The film is a psychological thriller wrapped around a love story in a sense. And I just hope that people will not only see themselves reflected in the story, but will also be enlightened to how this medieval practice that is solitary confinement, the effects it has. And 80,000 men, women, and children are in solitary confinement today in America. So I hope that's what people walk away with.
Are you going to step behind the camera and do more directing and producing?
I am. I am. I produced this newborn, and I produce about 80% of what I do now. I'm going to do a film called Heist of Benin, which is going to be myself and Ava DuVernay reuniting to do a heist movie about repatriating the Benin bronzes back to Nigeria. I'm producing that. And then producing and directing a film of Othello, which we're going to
Oh, wow.
shoot hopefully within the next year. So yeah, I love this medium. I love getting to tell stories that maybe other people are, for whatever reason, reluctant to tell, because I think their existence and their accessibility to the audience is very powerful.
Well, I think, throughout your career, you've had the great blessing of meeting with people who your acting has actually touched, and that feedback has got to be just incredibly uplifting.
Well, what I do for a living is entirely dependent on other people's reaction to it. Um, so, for better or worse, as you say, that is feedback you need and want, whether it's the audience or your peers, or people who need persuading that,
Mhm.
there's a side of humanity that they may not necessarily be paying attention to. So, yeah, I really value the opportunities I've been afforded to do that very thing because I do think it's very powerful.
Well, I think I also, just feel joy for you because you're in that position now where you can maybe pick and choose some of the things you want to do, you know, rather than at the beginning of your career, you've got to you just hustle and take everything. But now you kind of can breathe a little bit and run through a script.
Yeah, I mean, Newborn being a case in point, it's not a no-brainer project for studios to make necessarily. And, myself and Nate Parker, who wrote and directed it, us saying, no, this is something we want to put our weight behind. This is something we want to raise the money for. Look, we're distributing it ourselves as well through our distribution company, Mansa. We partnered with AMC to put it out into the world ourselves. So, yeah, that's all very empowering. And you're right. I am thankfully, and I feel blessed that I'm at a different stage in my career where I can be part of making those things happen. But I don't take it for granted. It's a real privilege to get to do that, and I never want to defile that blessing by giving the audience anything subpar. So I try to throw myself headlong into everything I do.
In our final moments we have, will you be returning or to the stage and doing live theater anytime soon?
Well, I just played Coriolanus at the National Theatre about a year ago,
Mm.
and the reality is, Tony, that it kicks your butt. I mean, it is no joke. And for whatever reason, I just don't pick anything easy. If I'm gonna do the stage, it's Othello, it's Coriolanus, it's Henry VI, and I don't think that's gonna stop anytime soon. So, yes, I will be looking to get back to the stage soon, but I've got a couple of these movies to get out of my my mind first.
Yeah, there you go. You need some rest before Othello. I'm going to audition for Desdemona. I think.
I've been thinking that the whole time we've been talking. I've just been thinking, look at those luscious lips.
I know you. I'll make the audience cry. Is what it will. David O, it is always a pleasure to talk with you. It's always a fun interview, and have a great holiday. Bless you, and keep working. You're one of my favorite people.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Bless you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye bye.